Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Thank you for joining. So, I wanted to do a live stream about the Obsessed Fest and everything that transpired and kind of how we got here. So hello, Jima. How are you? Hi, Grandma Sherry. And Jima, CSO. What does that stand for? Anywho, so True Crime Obsessed. True Crime Obsessed is a podcast that says they are a podcast of the non-garbage variety. I found True Crime Obsessed through another podcast called Crime Junkie, which some people may be or familiar with. I apologize. Crime Junkie, I honestly had a hard time listening to. I don't know if anybody else has, but it it was really hard to get through. Anywho, I heard an ad for True Crime Obsessed, and that's how I found them. So True Crime Obsessed is a podcast that covers documentaries in a comedic fashion. It kind of brings a little bit lighter of a side to some true crime documentaries, which I appreciated. You know, true crime um, is pretty heavy, so sometimes you do need that break. Athena Johnson says I can't listen to Crime Junkie either. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it was I don't know what the co-host name is, but yeah, she was rough to listen to. All right, just saying hi to people coming in. Hi, Beer Can Island, Spitfire, aka Pookie, Rowdy, Athena Johnson, Lorton Girl. Thank you for being here. So True Crime Obsessed did bring together a community of listeners through their Facebook page. So in the Facebook group, there are around 52,000, members. And within that group, there was always support. There was always support from each other, from the listeners sharing stories. There was always just people, supporting each other, lifting each other up in times of need, times of celebration, times of loss, times of heartbreak. It was just always a very supportive community to come to. I was very active in it. Um, yes. And so the Facebook group was heavily modded. So the admins would not approve every post, even weird ones. You think that they would have no problem posting or sharing. Even some posts that I would post would get denied. So, like I said, very heavily moderated, but very supportive within the listeners. So we'll kind of go through first who True Crime Obsessed is, what it consists of, and how we got here. All right. Hi, Fairy Meadows. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Okay, so I made a video. I was gonna just make a video about this, but I figured I would go live. I did invite some true crime obsessed listeners, so we may see some true crime obsessed. Well, I would say ex-listeners now, probably most of them. So hopefully they'll come and join the conversation. But here we're gonna go and talk about who True Crime Obsessed is. All right. So who's True Crime Obsessed? True Crime Obsessed is like I said, podcast consisting of two hosts, Jillian Pensavalli and Patrick Hines. Side note that Patrick and his husband Steve actually own the Obsessed Network. So put a pin in that. So the Obsessed Network has multiple podcasts under their umbrella. These include, but are not limited to, True Crime Obsessed, Murder and Alliance, Strange and Unexplained, and Crime of the Centuries. Now, I have not listened to Crimes of the Centuries or Strange and Unexplained. I have listened to Murder and Alliance, which I really enjoyed. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a crime journalist named Maggie Freeling, but she did a great job on that one. All right. And then another podcast that was under the True Crime Obsessed or True Crime Network umbrella was called, it was originally called Obsessed with Disappeared. They rebranded it to I Think Not once they ran out of disappeared episodes. But we will go a little bit deeper into that in just a minute. So, the True Crime Obsessed Network. Sorry, guys. Okay, so the backstory. Everything has a backstory. So this is how we got here. So Patrick Hines, who is, like I said, the owner of the Obsessed Network, he invited his best friend of 20 years, Ellen Marsh. Sorry, the 20 got separated up there. So they were so close that Ellen married Patrick and Steve when they got married, and Patrick married Ellen and her now ex-husband. So, like I said, they were extremely close. I think they met in college. They were both a part of the Broadway scene in New York. In 2020, Patrick and Ellen started their own podcast, Obsessed with Disappeared. So, like I said, they would cover disappeared episodes and just kind of cover those. I think that was on ID, if I'm not mistaken. So in 2022, Patrick exited the podcast with Ellen, and then she was joined by Joey Toronto. Eventually, Obsessed with Disappeared became I Think Not. And so there are rumors about how this exit happened. A lot of speculation that the other host of True Crime Obsessed was jealous. Like I said, here nor there, that's all speculation. We don't know that for sure, but that is the word on the street. Alrighty. So Joey, I'm not actually sure how Joey and Ellen know each other. I just know that, especially now they're really close. And I think this picture kind of explains everything with why Patrick exited. All right, let me try and get this forward. Okay, so the article. So there was an article that came out a couple months ago, who was written. It was written by a journalist named James Renner, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with James Renner, but he was very involved in the Maura Murray case. So he actually wrote, I think, a book on the Maura Murray case where he said some interesting things about Maura's dad. So he was definitely just a problematic. I would say problematic. I don't know what other people would say, but he got into some of these cases and kind of meddled around. So I would just, it was hard kind of taking what he said, but where there's smoke, there is fire. So we'll kind of read some of the excerpts from the article that I clipped. Name sounds familiar. Yeah, Blank Slate. James Renner has been around the true crime scene. Okay. So the article starts out with so for this article, he says, I spoke with 7 current and former employees of the Obsess Network. And each of them said that the person Patrick Hines appears to be in public is an act. And behind the scenes, he's threatening and insufferable. The most common response when reached by phone was, I was waiting for this shoe to drop. So when James Renner reached out to these individuals in order to, talk to them, they said that they were waiting for somebody. They're waiting for this to kind of all be brought into the public. So like I said earlier this year, Ellen Marsh, Joey Taranto. Oh, so sorry. So this is actually kind of where the drama all started. So, like I said about Ellen and Joey, they had their own podcast on the Obsessed Network. Earlier this year, Ellen Marsh and Joey Toronto used a audio clip from the film The Bling Ring in a TikTok video that garnered a lot of attention. After the clip was posted, the host received an email from Steve Tipton, Hines' husband and business partner, telling them that Hines was planning to use that audio for a TikTok post featuring himself and Jillian Pensavalle for their podcast True Crime Obsessed. When they explained to Tipton that deleting the video could impact the app's algorithm, this TV. Sorry, guys, I can't speak today. Steve responded with, "This was not a request." So, little bit of the drama starting here earlier this year. Um, let's get sorry guys. All right, just trying to get to this next clip. Okay. So at one time, Hines threatened to fire a podcast host. Hide this logo. Threatened a podcast host because they were late for a meeting, even though he was late for their meeting the week before. I have to get off the phone for this. It's going to end with you being off the podcast, he told them. A host was once reprimanded for not having a smile on her face during a company meeting. Um, According to office workers, women seem to receive the brunt of his anger. He allegedly is much softer with men. As far as a split with I Think Not, employees began to things began to fall apart when Joey Toronto stood up for Ellen Marsh during a company meeting. He objected the way Hines treated Marsh, which reportedly involved much screaming and yelling. Hines didn't like being confronted. Toronto's not the only one who took offense to the way Hines spoke to Marsh. Julia Rea was an independent contractor who worked for True Crime Obsessed in 2019. I witnessed the abuse with Ellen firsthand, she says. He threatened her repeatedly. He threatened to fire her several times. It was unfair and abusive treatment. So, long story short, this does sound like, a hostile work environment. Nobody wants to be in a company that you're constantly getting threatened to be fired, or just even yelled at in front of other employees. So that is the main reason that Ellen and Joey separated from the Obsess Network. I know that there was rumors about how the exit happened, and so there were rumors that they were demanding $3 million for the podcast to leave to kind of get bought out, which is out of control. I didn't know podcasts were worth $3 million. So I think they eventually, settled on Ellen and Joey leaving the network, starting their own network. They did have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I think just basically saying that they wouldn't talk about why they separated, but that's speculation. I don't know if that's true. But yeah, a blank slate sounds like a real joy. Well, it gets better or worse, I guess, however you want to think about it. Okay, let me try and move this forward. Sorry, guys. Okay. So now we're going to Obsess Fest. So, mind you, Ellen and Joy's podcast was already separated from the network. A lot of people ask, why are you going to Obsess Fest? Why are you guys still going to, continue with this relationship? They went to Obsess Fest to make sure that their fans, basically they didn't want to let down their fans. A lot of people had spent a lot of money, for this festival. Some $1,200. So some tickets were $1,200. Um, Oh, I'm sorry. YouTube user, I don't mean to ignore your comments. I just didn't see that your name wasn't popping up, so I apologize. But hello there, YouTube user. I hope you're doing well, and I'm glad you're here. So Friday opening ceremony. So there was a lot of chatter about the difference in the opening ceremonies from the first year to the second year. So the first year opening ceremonies, they introduced every podcast and every podcast host, every guest, and yeah, it was exciting. I actually have a clip from the first year's Obsess Fest of the opening ceremony with them introducing, like I said, each host and making it exciting. You want to make it exciting for the people that spent their money to get to Obsess Fest. It was in Dallas, Texas. People traveled from all over the country. And so, they left their families, they left their kids. This was a vacation for them. So rightfully so, they would want this to be. So this is a clip from the first year of Obsess Fest. Okay, you guys can see how exciting it seemed. They introduced everybody. So we'll play this real quick.
Julian Pensavalle, Damian Eccles, and Lori Davis.
Sorry, the video's lagging, it looks like. See if it'll get us through it. All right, I guess it doesn't want to work. We'll just. Okay. So you can kind of see just the environment, the atmosphere. It was exciting. Like I said, they introduced every podcast host this year. Not as exciting. They didn't introduce anybody. It sounds like speculation was that Patrick didn't want to hear all the cheers for Ellen and Joey. Like I said, speculation. That is just what I've heard on Reddit. So let's try and get. Okay, the videos are being weird. I apologize. But you can see, so they did have a drag brunch. So these are the awesome drag performers they had that did the opening. And then apparently after it was just Steve and Patrick, and they threw Liquid IV packets into the crowd. Liquid IV is one of their sponsors that they hype up a lot. And so they They just threw liquid IV packets into the crowd, which is kind of weird. So like I said, very different atmosphere from the beginning, from the original Obsessed Fest. This was their second year. Oh, and the CEO of Patreon was introduced for Obsessed Fest as well. And yeah, that was it. Okay, I got a little bit forward. Okay. So Friday night of Obsessed Fest, there was a premium-lebrity cocktail list party. So I say cocktail lists. There were cocktails, but you had to pay for them. And as a premium-lebrity, that package costed $1,200. YouTube user, single liquid IV package, so less. Yes. YouTube user, were you at Obsessed Fest this year? A blank slate, liquid IV. So it's like it's packets of like a hydration multiplier that you add to water. It's really good. I actually have some right now. But come on. Like single packets of liquid IV tossing into the crowd. It's a little weird. Okay. So, yes, $1,200 that premium-lebrities paid to have this package. So, cocktails, you would think paying $1,200 for a specific package, you get at least a free cocktail voucher, right? At the very least. Okay, no, but I was heavily active in the tea group. Yes, I'm in the tea group as well. In the obsessed Facebook group. Yes, so the YouTube user knows that the obsessed Facebook group has been radio silent for the past week. And like I said, there's always people posting in that just about their lives, everything. And especially the week after Obsessed Fest. Last year, there were so many pictures on the Facebook group, but they're not approving any posts right now. They're not, they issued one statement, which was, I think, yesterday. So it took them a week to issue a really sad statement that we'll go over, but it wasn't enough for what happened. Okay. So back to the premium-lebrity cocktail list party. So like I said, it was supposed to be a cocktail party with premium guests, no drink vouchers at all. So this is where the fun or drama or horror starts. Yes, a non-statement statement. Thank you. It was a non-statement statement. We'll get to it. So if you have listened to True Crime Obsessed ever, Patrick made, after they did an episode on Jen Shaw from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, um, so if you guys know Bravo, they call or some of the Bravo stars call themselves Bravo celebrities, I believe. I think Jen Shaw called herself a Shaw celebrity, so he took that and ran. He made everything a celebrity. He literally wears a shirt that says Patrick Celebrity. So this fan came to Obsessed Fest wearing a shirt that said Accountable Celebrity. And as you can see, the comment here says, Payne called for Patrick to take a pic with us and he stormed off. So there's different ways of how this went down, but what I heard from this person, I think they posted in the Facebook group, that he pushed past her and called her a fucking bitch. So let me say that again. The owner of Obsessed Network, who's putting on Obsessed Fest, calls a fan or a listener wearing a shirt that says Accountable Celebrity. I mean, I don't know what she was expecting, um, you know, wearing that, but I doubt she was expecting to be called a fucking bitch. and to upset Patrick that much. But I guess that's why we're here. So this kind of started the downward slide of Obsess Fest, I believe. So Saturday was kind of a bigger day for live shows, I believe. So one of the podcasts that were featured in Obsess Fest this year, I think they were added a little bit late, is the host of Survivor Squad. So Survivor Squad consists of Tara Newell and Collier Landry. So Tara Newell is most famous for killing her stepdad, Dirty John, in self-defense. I don't know if anybody here has heard of Dirty John, but yeah, pterodactyl and colander. Oh, so pterodactyl and colander. These are some of our new names for these lovely people. So, there is a video I'm going to play in a second from Ellen's podcast with Rabia Chowdhury, giving her side of the story, kind of what happened. But just so you guys know, these two entered an elevator with Ellen, I guess started screaming at her, saying that James Renner, the author of the article we just read parts of, saying that Ellen sent James Renner after Tara and Collier, and that they've made their life a living hell. So this is Ellen. So they were in an elevator, they were screaming at Ellen, and it poured out into the event space. So this is how I came across this whole situation. I saw Ellen's post on Facebook, and then Reddit just started exploding. So Ellen said, Tara said, "You've caused no end of drama for us the past months." Ellen says, "I was running to my panel and putting my shoes in the elevator, and I thought she was a DB. DB is our name for basically, the down bitches. It was a term that Ellen coined, I think, during Obsessed with Disappeared. A down bitch is somebody that is a friend in like a true crime documentary that has takes no shit and wants to figure out what happened. Kind of like the friend of Shanann Watts. She knew something was wrong and she was not going to stop until something was done. So thought she was a DB and was joking and joking that the podcast had made her laugh at work or something, and so they got in trouble. So she said, "What's your name?" The way I do to any listener. She was wearing podcast merch and had a badge. She told me her name, and the wheels turned in my head, and I said, "Oh my God, nice to meet you." Then she started yelling that my life drama has affected her life, and then her boyfriend, who I've never seen or heard of, started crying. I made James Renner come after them. James will attest to our interactions. Then I said, "I'm sorry you've been affected by that, but I don't know who you are." I said this probably 10 or 15 times as I was very uncomfortable and felt attacked as she kept yelling. One of the times I said, "I didn't know." Sorry, this part makes me laugh. I said this probably 10 or 15 times. I was very uncomfortable and felt attacked. And she kept yelling. And one of the times I said, "I didn't know who they were." The man yelled, "The something Memphis murders. Google it." Hilarious. So, Collier Landry was in a documentary called I think, Murder in Mansfield. He did go through something traumatic as well. He had to stand trial against his dad, because his dad murdered his mom. So, definitely not an excuse to be a garbage person, but he did go through something very traumatic. So this is where Colander comes from, because Ellen didn't know his name, so she called him Colander. Collender then said I yelled at Jillian in the green room. I avoided Jillian, and Jillian's the other podcast host on True Crime Obsessed. I avoided Jillian in the green room, hugged Tyler Mount, Jillian's handler and former Broadway blogger, got my lunch and left. No words were exchanged, not even a glance. Eye contact was made. Then the line chaos witnessed by all transpired. So once Ellen, Collier, and Tara exited the elevator, it was heard by many people in line waiting for a meet and greet that Tara basically yelled, "Fuck off, bitch," to Ellen in front of listeners, which is really crazy. In front of listeners at an event that supposedly Tara's new best friend, Patrick, is running, and just caused chaos. So Ellen says, I've never met these people, seen these people, spoken their names. I didn't know they were podcasters. So I only knew Tara's name because we covered Dirty John and I remember names well. The videos of all the interactions have been subpoenaed by Dallas PD, convention center, and hotel security. When my safety was not prioritized, we pulled from the last two events. I was never questioned by Mischief, and Mischief Management, by the way, is the event planning company owned by Patrick's friend. So I was never questioned by Mischief or asked any questions as to what happened. I was simply told that they would not be removed. They had no more programming for the day. When Harris, my producer, went to alert the line that we would continue the meet and greet and take a picture with every last person, Melissa, who's the CEO of Mischief Management, refused and was removed from the convention center by Melissa Anelli, the founder of Mischief, planner of Jillian's wedding, which that's been debated, and Patrick's old friend. This was witnessed by several people, and they have made statements in writing. That's on transparency. There are two sides to every story. There's videos and screenshots. I would love the story they have told to become public. So when all the video is accessible, they can grab a ukulele. I've kept my side of the street clean and will continue to do so, and will not step from any form of the truth. I will not be bullied, and narratives will not be changed. I will stand up for myself now and moving forward. Consider the bear poked. So that is kind of the recap of Obsess Fest. So after this, Ellen and Joey just moved their meet and greet outside, and they continued just hanging out with their fans, I believe at a bar next door or nearby, and did karaoke with their fans, which was super cool. So the next event for Obsessed Fest, well, that kind of, I apologize. So this is when Joey, who is Ellen's co-host and friend, tried to talk to Collier, and you can see Tara Newell's reaction. And I guess just judge for yourself. So Joey goes up to try to talk to Collier.
Go away. Go away. Please go away. Please go away. Please go away.
So Tara is just saying, go away, please go away. Sounds like a broken record. But again, just tries to make a scene. I don't know why she was acting this way. My guess is just to make it further look like they were the ones being victimized. But I wasn't there, but that's just my opinion. So I don't know. Imagine yelling at somebody and then acting like that when someone was just trying to see what happened. You know, that's my opinion on it. Anywho, so the drag brunch. So the drag brunch was the last event on Sunday. It was included in a lot of people's tickets. As you can see, a lot of people chose not to come. You can see all the empty seats. So this has changed since I made this video, but at the time that I made this video, Patrick, Jillian, and the Obsessed Network had not made an official statement. True Crime Obsessed Facebook group, which is usually bustling with posts, is radio silent. So now the group is still radio silent. Patrick has made a statement, which I actually will bring up real quick so you guys can see the non-statement statement. Hold on one second. And actually, before we do that, I'm going to just play part of Ellen's podcast she did on so they recorded part of this on Monday after Obsess Fest. They added this beginning portion I believe on Wednesday. So we'll kind of go through what she had to say.
Rabia,
Hey, gorgeous.
how are you?
I'm recovering. How are you?
Yeah.
So, by the way, Ellen is on the left, Rabia is on the right. So, Rabia, if you guys don't know, she is the older sister of Adnan Saeed's best friend. So, she was big on being the advocate for Adnan through his post conviction and eventually helping him get exonerated.
Same. I'm in a state of meh. I'm just a meh.
Meh.
But we're here and we recorded an episode on Monday. This episode that you are going to hear, we recorded on Monday. And since then, a couple of things have come up that we need to clear up because having any kind of inaccuracies online is something that I don't want to speak for you, Rabia, but that neither of us will tolerate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but look, here's the thing. That is just how the internets operate. But
Sure.
It is our job when we're able to set the record straight at least once. You're not able to it's like playing whack-a-mole with the internet. You can't get to everybody, but.
Now, I think a lot of that rings true with just YouTube in general. A lot of us can agree.
At least if people want to know, did Ellen or Rabia set the record straight on X, it's out there.
Yep.
I do want to say when we recorded this on Monday, just to give some context, we had all just returned from Dallas, right? We'd all just returned from the Obsess Fest. And so you're going to be hearing us unpack what happened.
Yeah. But before that, so you know I love to quote my queen, Maya Angelou. And like Maya Angelou said, develop enough courage so that you can stand up for yourself. So then you can stand up for someone else. But I will be very honest with you. Standing up for myself does not come naturally to me. I am much more comfortable standing up for other people.
I can attest to this. This has been.
I think a lot of us probably feel the same way. It is so hard to stand up for ourselves sometimes, especially if you're not into confrontation.
A very long, ongoing, long-standing conversation between Ellen and I. Yes.
Yes. But I do talk a lot and I do kind of need to start listening to myself because I do tell people to not tolerate. I tell people don't tolerate when others treat you poorly, and that you're allowed to set boundaries and things that you're not willing to tolerate. And that's sort of what we're going to do here really quickly before our episode. But I do want to say this before we start, and that is that
fast forward this.
I don't always want to talk about X, Y, and people have shit happening in their lives. People have a lot of serious stuff they're dealing with real life stuff too. Not everything is in the front of your brain all the time or priority.
Totally agree. So I just wanted to make it very clear and just say in black and white that Rabia and I do not support or condone any kind of harassment, online or otherwise.
Yep.
And we are just here today to set the record straight about our thoughts and feelings about the events. So I'm going to start by saying that there was a statement put out by Mischief Management that
So Mischief Management, who, like I said, is the event planning company, issued a statement shortly after the debacle at Obsessed Fest. I know Ellen does. She is always professional. Always, always, always. So I guess it's one thing that I actually forgot to mention, I apologize, is that Ellen asked for Tara and Collier to be removed from Obsessed Fest. They didn't have any programming left. They had no more obligations to the festival. Ellen and Joey had 2 more events that they had to do. So Ellen just asked for Tara and Collier to be removed after they had screamed at her. And the Mischief Management team, they refused and said that if they removed Tara and Collier, they would have to remove Ellen and Joey. So that's just some context.
was the, what do you call it? The party planners of Obsessed
And they're the
Fest.
organizers. Yeah.
Yeah. And this statement was riddled with inaccuracies, and I would like to address them publicly.
Mhm.
For our YouTube watchers, we'll put the screen image of the statement. But for now, I'm just going to point out some of the things that were in there because I love a receipt. And all of our findings and everything that we have spoken about is all backed by video, audio, or picture.
Or actual people who were
or
there.
actual witnesses. Yeah, we do have that too.
Yeah.
The statement reads, at Obsessed Fest 2023, we were alerted that there had been a confrontation beginning in the hotel space involving Ellen Marsh, Collier Landry, and Tara Newell, all of which left the parties feeling accosted and traumatized. Okay.
So I just want to say that I don't know why Tara felt accosted and traumatized. But
Then it goes on to say, upon their arrival to the event space, our staff took quick action to assure guests were separated and escorted to their respective scheduled location. This is inaccurate. I walked myself to my location, and nobody from Mischief came to me until after me and Rabia's taping. And I would like to say again, I'm going to say this in the episode, but my personal handler, Gabby, was lovely.
Yeah.
It goes on to say that Joey confronted their staff, strenuously insisted that Mr. Landry and Miss Newell all be removed from the event, or they would no longer meet the rest of their obligations.
So isn't that a normal practice of just any sort of event? Somebody who was witnessed screaming at another person should be removed. So just put a pin in that.
I don't know if you know Joey Taranto. Joey is, in a time of crisis, he is cool as a cucumber. And the statement goes on to make it seem like Joey was aggressive. And there is video footage to prove that he was anything but aggressive. And also, my producer was the one who asked for them to be removed. We did tell them that we didn't feel safe to go on with the event. And so when they did not honor our request, we continued with our event off-site.
And that event, by the way, was a meet and greet, which means it was kind of wide open. You could have been exposed to potentially anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was our concern. If they had been scheduled for events, we wouldn't have asked them to leave. Our meet and greet went on for 2.5 hours. It was far beyond our scheduled hour. And then it says in the statement that our producer attempted to use events resources to promote their offsite event. Those resources included Harris telling the line that we're outside.
So even after being verbally attacked, Ellen and Joey still wanted to meet with their fans. They wanted to make sure that their fans still got to do the meet and greet. So, they could have just left and said, we don't feel safe. But no, they care about their listeners.
But what Melissa Anelli left out was she said to our line of listeners, Ellen and Joey have decided not to do this meet and greet. And we have 9 in writing witness statements that separately all attested that that was her verbiage. It also says that Harris left of her own volition. This is a lie. We've subpoenaed the footage from the convention center. Melissa Anelli physically escorted Harris Lane and our friend Joshua Dorsett off the premises all the way to the convention center door. It then said that, quote, we communicated that we would do anything in our power to keep Mr. Toronto and Mrs. Marsh, and they said that they could not fulfill the rest of their obligation. This is a lie. Nobody from Mischief Management spoke to us at all. It says they offered to reschedule our meet and greet. This is a lie. That was never offered to us.
Yep.
None of these things were offered to us.
So yes, like Sarah said, there were signs all over Obsess Fest that started with, if anybody is subject to verbal harassment. That is what happened to Ellen. And I believe after, because, true crime fans, they love their receipts. Everybody went to the Obsess Fest Code of Conduct page, as well as Mischief Management's Code of Conduct page. They both somehow now go to error pages, which is very weird.
We did not make the choice to pull out from the event. We were forced to pull out from the event because we were the only ones that gave consideration to our
You met
safety.
your obligations. You met
Yeah.
and greeted everybody who wanted to. In fact, probably more people who could have gotten in that hour. You met your obligations in a way that you were able to keep yourself safe, basically.
Yeah. So to that statement, the lack of accountability, the lack of, oh, wow, we fucked up, to them I say fuck off, because you cannot put things in print and expect people to take it as gospel just because you
I just want to say, go Ellen, go Ellen.
say it doesn't make it true. And nothing was done to make the experience better for the attendees. And it certainly was not done in our best interest. And I think Melissa Anelli loved that. And you can quote me.
I just want to say that when I read the statement,
Okay, very off topic, but the picture behind Rabia is Adnan Syed. That's the one she helped exonerate, and I just love that the picture's behind her.
that's what really, because I thought you didn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
You actually didn't have to say anything, especially because you yourself are admitting, I haven't seen video footage. You haven't spoken to Joey or Ellen or Ashley or anybody who was a witness to anything. You've spoken to nope. You didn't have to make a single statement. And then the entire tone of the statement was obviously to make it look like you and Joey were instigators. And I was there. I mean, I was in the periphery the entire time. And as things were happening in real time, we're all connected constantly, right?
So in regards to what Rabia said, I do find it weird that something like this happened, seen by hundreds of listeners, and they didn't take statements from any listeners. They didn't take statements from any witnesses. They just kind of went with what was told to them, probably from, I'm not, that side of the camp. Because, like I said, Melissa was the owner of Obsessed Network's good friend.
It made my blood boil. That was just unacceptable. And I got I did post, and then I got an email from Melissa. And anyhow, that's all on Instagram. But no, that you can't get away with such it's bald-faced lies.
It was a lot of lies. And the only thing I can say is that footage has been subpoenaed by the Dallas PD. However, we had verbal confirmation from the security at the convention center who did see the footage that it happened exactly the way that we said.
Receipts,
baby. So I want to go on to a podcast that was released today We are recording this Wednesday evening. The podcast released today by Red Handed also contained a few inaccuracies, probably due to a game of telephone, because I only saw Saruti and Hannah on Friday morning.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of fast forward through this because this goes on about another podcast that just kind of threw some shade about the situation at Obsessed Fest. But also, like I said, didn't really talk to anybody from what I know. And are just going off probably information that they heard from others. Excuse me. All right, so now let me see if I could pull up the statement that Patrick made. My gosh, Sarah, did they delete it? I don't see it. Okay, I'm not gonna make you guys wait for me to find it. So anyways, I'm gonna kind of wrap this up as far as the drama and everything. So oh, it was pinned, Sarah. Okay, let me. Okay, I apologize. I can't find it. So, in this video, Ellen and Rabia go on to say that it is it's kind of a public known thing that Tara Newell carries a pocket knife everywhere she goes. So as you can see, anybody would be uncomfortable with, one being verbally attacked by another host at an event that is supposed to care about people's safety. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? I know it probably was a lot, probably went over a lot of people's heads. So personally, I don't know, as as a listener of True Crime Obsessed, like I said, I found them probably a couple years before COVID. They did provide a community of great people that listen to them. A lot of them are left heartbroken. A lot of them are feeling duped. A lot of them are feeling like, you know, I know podcasters aren't our friends. But once you listen to somebody or a podcast or anything like that, you start to feel like these people are your friends, and they did break a lot of listeners' hearts. Um, a lot of comments have been made on the Facebook group demanding accountability. Patrick basically made a statement saying that he did what he could with the information they had at the time. And I know that they had more information. They knew what was going on. It was all over Reddit, and I know that Reddit, um, you know, can't be also taken as gospel. But you know, they did their fans dirty. Another thing that happened with Obsessed Fest is that they promised their fans that they would not be doing the same live show, that they would be doing on the road. So they did a tour this year and did a live show up regarding the Jinx documentary. They did the same live show at Obsessed Fest, which really made people mad as well. Sarah says, I'm truly disappointed in Patrick, Steve, and Jillian, and the behavior was extremely unprofessional and the exact opposite of what they preach. Yes, like I said, they called themselves a podcast of non-garbage variety. I think this is garbage behavior. You don't treat people like this. You don't treat your listeners like this. Especially that girl, that the poor girl that Patrick called a fucking bitch. Like a lot of listeners when they read the James Renner article, because people in the article said that Patrick would go from 0 to 100. I mean, we kind of all expected that from him. He said that a lot, but screaming at listeners is not okay. Yes. Practice what you preach. I agree, Pookie. So Lorton Girl, the name of the podcast is True Crime Obsessed. Um Yeah, I don't know. I get a little lost for words on this one because probably like Sarah, we found comfort in this community and you know, they just kind of ruined it. And there was a comment earlier today that somebody made that even though they brought the community together, it doesn't mean that the community can't stand. Which we can. We can still stand together. We can still support each other. um you know even though the person that brought us together no longer goes by the ideologies that we thought he did. Alrighty. Well, does anybody have any other thoughts, questions? Are there any other DBs in here besides Sarah? DB, show yourself. Isn't that Emma's podcast from the UK? So True Crime Obsessed is a podcast of a guy named Patrick, a girl named Jillian, and this Lorton Girl was about the kind of Fire Fest nature of this year's Obsessed Fest that they put on. I don't know if they're gonna do one next year. I gotta say, I think they're gonna have a hard time selling tickets. A lot of people, I think, even disputed the charges on their credit card because they were one lied to. They weren't given the basically the information about they were given wrong information about what the live show was going to be. They were promised something different than they were given. To my knowledge, the Obsessed Network did release an email or send out an email, basically saying that if you were at a live show and Obsessed Fest, you're allowed to get a $50 refund, which is kind of funny. I think the lowest cost of an Obsessed Fest ticket was $260. Or you are able to trade it in your credit for another. Oh, okay, Lauren girl. They said that you could also use that credit towards another live show, which I mean, rich that they think some of their listeners that are asking for refunds are going to still support them. All right. Well, I think that's all I have. Oh, Emma is crime stories obsessed. Gotcha. Yes, very similar. All right. Well, I thank you guys for joining me today. Um, I know some of this probably didn't make sense, and I apologize, but I did want to share at least the story of this situation, because like I said, a lot of fans are heartbroken. A lot of people are feeling like they've been misled, which is, it's never okay to feel like that, especially for somebody, fans of somebody that they supported, somebody that they looked up to. I know a lot of people looked up to Patrick and Jillian once upon a time, but here we are. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah, for joining. Thank you, everybody else, for joining. Lorton Girl, Spitfire, Chris Cress, Grandma Sherry, thank you so much. A Blank Slate. It's me, Amberly, Grandma, Ripples in Time, Fairy Meadows, Rowdy, Beer Can Island. All right. If I missed you, I apologize. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great night. I hope you guys stay safe tonight if you guys are going out for Halloween. I didn't have a costume, so I'm just going to stay home and watch scary movies. All right, I'll see you guys later.